Does anyone remember the Green Machine? If you're a certified unk like I am, you'll probably remember this cool trike because it was plastered across every cable TV network in the early 2000s and was seen on virtually every Toys R Us floor in the country. But the Green Machine, to my surprise, is not just an early 2000s toy, and the story is pretty interesting. So this was the original Green Machine, which was released by Mark's Toys in 1976. 7 years earlier, in 1969, they dropped the Big Wheel, which essentially blew up and became the toy of the 70s. Coming off the high of the Big Wheel, Mark's developers created the Green Machine, which was made for ages 8 to 10, and it was basically a 360 spinning tricycle. It was very cool. Year it dropped, it was $23.99, and it was basically just a badass version of the Big Wheel toy. And it was such a smart innovation because all of those kids who grew up on the Big Wheel were getting older and they needed something a little more tough to play with. So as you can imagine, this toy crushed it in the late 70s until Mark's Toys actually went bankrupt in 1980, owing over $2 million in newspaper, magazine, and TV advertising, putting the Green Machine out of production and leaving the runoff stock to be sold for half the price in local newspapers in 1981. The hype quickly faded and the toy essentially disappeared until its triumphant return in 2003. It was re-released by Huffy, which is like the biggest bike company of all time, and the way they unearthed it was the most early 2000s way possible, by creating the most insane, wild, interesting, out-of-pocket TV ads and plastering them all across Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. Huffy was huge. They had all the marketing expertise, budget, and connections to make this launch super successful, but they really had one superpower, and that superpower was nostalgia. This was the same toy our parents had grown up with in the 70s, so they were already familiar with it and there was no convincing required. I never had the toy, some of my friends did, but I remember I would go to Toys R Us and it was always on the ground for you to try, and I would whip that shit around on the waxy Toys R Us floor. It was like the most fun toy ever. But what's really unique about the Green Machine is it didn't just disappear to the void like a lot of these early 2000 toys do that just feel kind of like a flash in the pan of this time period. It actually just kept on getting better and kept on innovating and is still around today. In the summer of 2007, they created a water gun version. In 2009, they upgraded to an adjustable steel frame, which meant as you got taller, you could still ride your Green Machine. In 2013, the toy successfully rebranded itself as this drift trike. And in 2017, it went fully electric, which, by the way, this looks so sick. I want one so bad. It goes to show how timeless this toy really was. I mean, look at this letter to Santa I found in a 1977 newspaper where Danny is asking for a Green Machine. And then look at this newspaper from 26 years later in 2003 where Tristan is asking for the same exact toy. Which begs the question, if you could bring back any toy from your childhood, which one would you bring back and what would you do to innovate on it? I would bring back flywheels and I would add a little camera to it that you could slow down and see everything slow motion. Free idea, which by the way, I did already do a feature on flywheels, so go check that out. Green Machine's like a 10 out of 10 in my book, so I pay my respect to it. If you like this series, please follow for more of my Forgotten Early 2000 Toys series. Thank you so much for watching.